This episode discusses topics of mental health. If you or anyone you know needs support, call Lifeline on 131114 or Beyond Blue on 1800 512 348. In an emergency, dial 000. Welcome to the Baby Playbook podcast for another week, another episode. And today's episode, I think you're going to need to get the tissues out again. I'm so sorry. I keep doing this to you guys. I keep bringing up all the emotions that surround motherhood and get really emotional in these episodes. Now, we've had a couple of episodes already talking about postnatal mental health, postnatal blues, depression, anxiety. So make sure you go into the feed and have a listen to some of those because the reason I keep bringing this up is I think it's a really important topic to speak about when it comes to new parents, motherhood, babies, the newborn stage, pregnancy. I think it's something that we really need to keep an eye on and keep a check on for ourselves and those around us. So this is why I keep bringing it up. And this episode in particular is going to be really, really insightful. Just even editing this episode, I've been getting really emotional listening to it. So good luck to you all as you tune in now. This is a feature episode of the How to Life podcast. This is my third feature on this podcast of that podcast, which is a podcast that I was on during the time I became a new parent. So I did a lot of episodes surrounding, the topic of parenting. This one was probably the most emotional at the time, which is when Noel was 3 months old. He was in the studio with me at the time, which you'll hear references to, and his little voice and his little he was in one of those baby carriers, so he was kind of grunting through the episode. But yeah, it's where I really opened up about my postnatal blues and how I was feeling those first few weeks and months of him being born. It's such a raw episode, and at the time I was really daunted when it came to actually recording the episode and putting my hand up and telling the girls that I wanted to talk about it, but I'm so glad that I did. I know so many people even since then, which is now 4 and a bit years ago, have been reaching out to me saying that they had the same feelings and that it really helps them hearing it from someone else, and it encourages them to seek some help and speak to someone about it. So I'm going to drop that in your feed now. Warning, get the tissues out. That is your last warning I'm giving you. And I hope that this episode gives you a big hug.
How to life. Nick, how are you, darling?
All right. I'm good, guys. I am still a mum. Yeah, that doesn't change. But, today's episode has kind of been a bit daunting for me to prepare for because I know that I really want to talk about some really important things around motherhood and having a baby and being a first-time mum, which is a whole roller coaster of emotions and tears and lots in between. And you know what? How fitting that Noah is currently strapped on me in the studio at the moment. I could not find a babysitter today. And we had a bit of a meltdown this morning, but that's all right. We all made it in the end. It was raining. I was road raging. It was all happening.
But we're finally meeting him too. And can I just say for our listeners, because I've seen lots of photos, lots of videos, and they're super cute, but him in real life,
thank you. I made
he is the most delicious little bean. And he's teeny tiny.
Tiny.
And he's just
I wish I could cuddle him.
Massive brown eyes like Nikki, this beautiful little he's too much, truly. I picked him up before off Nick and I felt a very physical pain in my womanly body parts.
It was a sting.
So cute. Anyway, sorry, Nick.
No, don't apologise. But yeah, Noah we've just gotten over 3 months old, which is so exciting. And it's such a milestone when you're a first-time mum to get through the newborn phase. They do say it's 3 or 4 months, so I've still got a couple of weeks to get to 4 months. But that period of time is, you know what I mean? This is a podcast and I'm trying to put into words what I've been experiencing the last 3 months, and it's so, so hard because I am, for anybody who doesn't know, this is a first-time mum, first baby. I'm 28, so I'm a little bit, what people say, young-ish to have a baby, which is a bit weird, but when Nick and I decided to have a baby, we were so it was just, we were both on par. We were so ready. We were so excited to get pregnant. I remember I took one test my first test was negative and I had this real sadness inside. And that's when I thought to myself, I really know I really want to have a baby now. Yeah. Because if that had come back, you know, if I wasn't sad, then you kind of rethink it and you're like, oh, maybe am I ready for a baby or whatever. So when I was pregnant, I had a really good pregnancy. I didn't have any kind of morning sickness, worked all the way through. I had lots of like all these career opportunities like hitting me in the face, the podcast, all this like exciting stuff in the travel world. And it was all really happening for me. And I thought, you know, I had this real confidence of I'm just going to nail this. I'm going to become a mum and then I'm going to get back to work real quick, but I'm going to balance it really well. And, you know, I'm going to do all these things right and I'm going to raise him right and he's going to sleep properly because I'm going to put him into a routine when he's 1 week old. I was real prepped for all of that. And then came the birth, which I touched on in a couple of episodes ago, which was really positive birth. I didn't I gave birth naturally. It happened all like pretty, I don't want to say normally because normal births there's no such thing as a normal birth, but
absolutely
the birth was, you know, luckily and God bless was really safe and he came in happy, healthy. It was really exciting. And then motherhood hit me. And I think that it was a real shock to me what motherhood actually entailed. A baby is not a project. You know, a baby is not a new job. A baby is a real little human thing. And when, you know, you come home from the hospital and you're like, okay, like I'm terrified because I don't know why they're letting me out of this hospital room with a human to keep alive because how am I going to do that? I don't even know how to do it. And it's all really confusing and it's all a bit of an emotional mess and stuff, but you at least have your partner there. And I was really lucky that Nick had 3 weeks off work and we kind of did it all together as a team. And then I think at the 3-week mark, I had some real anxiety hit me where I was about to be by myself. Nick was going back to work. You know, Noah was like not sleeping like an angel. I had no time to myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. My friends wanted to come see him and I was so sad all the time that I didn't want them to see me sad. So I just cancelled all my plans. And I started feeling like just these kind of feelings of sadness all the time. And it was a real kind of weird time because Noah is this newborn and I love him so much and he's the cutest thing, as you've said. And on the other hand, like I hate my life. I literally got to the point where I was like, what have I done? And like I'm getting emotional thinking about it now because you've got it. You know, as much as you love your baby so much at the start, there's this real shock to the system. And being like such a confident person, being, you know, really career driven, and anytime, you know, there was a problem at work or something I had to learn at work, I was really fast at it and I nailed it and I just thought I was like superwoman. And all of a sudden I didn't want to be a mum anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's like only been 4 weeks. Like this little baby needs me to be his mum, you know, like I chose to be a mum. And yeah, there was real struggle there for a few weeks when he was quite young. And I have to say like a massive thank you to Nick, who is like so much more level-headed than me. I'm like a massive stress head, so he was there, you know, to be like, he's not sleeping, it's all good, we'll go for a walk, you know, whereas I'm like pulling my hair out. And yeah, I think that I really want to talk about the fact that motherhood at the start is not what I thought it was going to be. And that's okay. And what I've heard is that a lot of people experience it, whether it's, you know, postnatal depression, postnatal anxiety, or just postnatal blues. And I definitely fell into that really quickly. And it was really hard for me to admit that because, again, you know, I had spoken about how excited I was to become a mum and, you know, I uploaded my photo from the hospital and he looked like a little angel, and you get comments of people saying like, congratulations, you're so lucky. And then you're sitting there, you know, late at night kind of like bawling your eyes out because you're so scared about the fact that you can't go back and you can't give him to anybody because he's your baby now. And so yeah, I think I'm in a much better place now. I want to say that Noah's a bit older and I'm understanding him more, and motherhood is like becoming a little bit more kind of predictable at times, not all the time. And I think the massive thing that has helped is I admitted at the 6-week mark that I really needed to speak to someone about it. And it was with a really, really great lady who kind of specializes in postnatal feelings and blues and stuff like that. And it's been really great speaking to her on a regular basis and just getting my emotions out. Because as much as you have family and friends around you, as much as I have you guys to text and my friends and my sister who's a beautiful like mum of 2 and she's been through it all, you can only speak to people so much around you, your friends, as he cries on me. But I think it's really important to eventually just accept that speaking to your friends and your family isn't helping, and the cycle at the end of every week was the same. I would be really, really happy on Monday, and then I'd have a nightmare day, and then I'd cry, and then at night I'd be breastfeeding, and it'd be really like painful, and I'd be like, I hate breastfeeding, I hate doing this, I just want to sleep. And then you log on to Instagram and your friends are out having dinner, and you're like, I'm never going to have dinner again. I'm never going to be able to leave the house. So when I finally recognized that the cycle was just like continuously going, I made sure that I reached out to someone. So I really encourage anyone who's either in the thick of it or even, you know, I'm not necessarily saying a newborn. You can have children of your own who are even grown, and you can absolutely hate being a mum, and that's totally okay, because we don't have to constantly be, you know, the glorious mothers that you see on Instagram or the powerful mothers that you know in your life. Some of us are just, you know, naturally gonna hate it at times, and that's totally okay, what I've learned lately. And yeah, God, I've just been rambling for like 10 minutes now. Do you guys have any questions about this?
No, it's important that you have the space to talk about it too, because obviously it's something that Jen and I haven't gone through. And so I think just hearing you and giving you that space to talk about it and say what you want to say as well. I think my question would be, I know depression without a baby can be a chemical imbalance in the brain. And I imagine with a baby, obviously there's more hormones going through your body, and once you give birth, that's, you know, it's all happening internally. Does that affect the postnatal depression? Is it a hormone imbalance as well as?
Definitely.
You felt that?
Yeah, I think that it's one, you're recovering from giving birth, right? So
Correct.
the motherhood bus is like, you know, it's like a double decker that you've just been slammed, because it's not only a physical recovery after you've given birth, whether you've given naturally cesarean, whatever you've had to go through, and then on top of that you are learning to look after a human being, and on top of that your hormones are all over the place. So, you know, in those first few weeks, the crying every day was normal, because that everyone goes through it, and I want people to know that if you're crying every day, and if you like sick of breastfeeding, like all of that is totally normal. I don't think that I read enough that it was normal before that, so I in my head was like, I'm an absolute mess, I can't believe I'm like this, I need to be more confident, I need to, like, what's wrong with me? And then it's, I think, recognizing that if after a few weeks or if after a couple of months you're still feeling quite, you know, those emotions of sadness or loneliness, if you're feeling just out of your depth, if you're feeling like sometimes you just want to leave the house maybe, and you don't want to sit there listening to crying, you don't want to sit there thinking about the next feed, I think that's when you have to realize, well, okay, I understand my hormones are all out of place, but these are now my like mental thoughts, and these are now emotions that I don't know how to handle, and just ask for help to handle those emotions, because
Absolutely.
it's coming from someone as well who, as I explained, I had a really positive birth and I had a really positive pregnancy, and I think that's why, and this came from my therapist, is that's why it hit me really hard, because not to say that I want people out there to have a really horrible pregnancy and be sick all the time, but if you're a little bit sick, or if you have really bad, you know, pains, and like it's all happening and you're sleeping all the time because you're constantly tired when you're pregnant, well, you've kind of have a bit of an introduction to motherhood, like a pre-introduction. Whereas when you spend 9 months feeling nice and like, you know, chippy and like really like extra energy and love and life, and then go to a birth and have a birth and leave the hospital the next day because you were feeling up to it, and all of a sudden then you're hit with the motherhood bus, I think it's like 10 times harder.
like you said, you've also never dealt with any type of real mental health issues before. So like, I know I've dealt with those type of things before, like feeling depressed and anxious and days where I just couldn't get out of bed. But I didn't have a baby to look after when all that was new.
Yeah.
So to deal with those feelings combined with something that's depending on you and all of that at the one time, like you're not giving yourself enough credit for, you're in a studio with your baby recording a podcast saying he's 3 months old. Like that is a massive achievement.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
No, I think, and something that really helped was trying to get through to little milestones. I like kind of set things up like we'll get to when he's 6 weeks and then we'll get to when he's 8 weeks and now we're 12 weeks and whatever. Those little things definitely helped. But yeah, as you said, I've never been a very anxious person. So when I started becoming really anxious and not sleeping at all because I was anxious, that was heightened on a whole another level for me.
Deprivation will do.
Yeah.
Too.
So, you know, even feelings of sadness when I've never really had something in my life to be overly sad about was just like who I honestly on most days was just asking, who am I? I have no idea who I am anymore. And there's only so much. I remember my husband said to me, because he was there, you know, every day, you know, helping out and hugging and whatever I needed to hear, he tried to say. And, you know, God bless him, he only tried as much as he could because he's not a professional. But he said to me one day, he said, Nikki, I know who you are, and usually if you get knocked down, you get back up pretty quickly. And if you don't feel like you can get back up at this stage, then maybe just go talk to someone. Yeah. Because it's not up to you to fix yourself. It's up to you to just accept that, this is your life and you might not like it at the moment and there's parts of it that you might hate. But in the end, you know, as brutal as it is, you're a mum and you can't give your kid back. So go get some help at helping yourself, and then you can only become a better mum from then.
Correct, because deep down, like, you have those thoughts of you can't give your kid back, but you don't want to give your kid back either.
Yeah. It's a weird battle that you have.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, you know, I want to just be able to get in the car and go wherever I want and not worry about the time. But also, like, I love looking back in my back seat and seeing his smiling little face, looking at a weird toy that I've attached to his capsule, you know?
Absolutely. And I think it's also so overwhelming when you're first getting used to those feelings of sadness but there's nothing to be sad about.
Yeah.
Like, everything's great. I've got what I've always wanted and I love my baby and everything's good. But then you feel guilty with yourself as to, well, I know when I just felt just generally depressed, I'm like, my life's great.
Yeah.
Look at other people in the world. I've got an amazing life. Then I feel bad that you feel bad.
You compound
and then that's just a cycle.
That's,
So the fact you went to talk to someone as well so quickly.
Yeah.
Because you just only make things so much worse for yourself when you just sit in it.
Yeah, you do, definitely. And going on that as well, like, I wanted to talk about the guilt, because the mum guilt is so brutal about everything, you know. Like, one thing is breastfeeding just was not for me. I absolutely hated it. And I remember people around me would say, oh, you just got to get to the 4-month mark because that's like the best milk, and you like have to make sure you don't give them formula before that point. And I thought to myself, I
bullshit.
can't. I don't want to breastfeed anymore. And it was making the mental side of things even worse for me.
Was it painful or just the act?
Well, it was just the act, and I had like a little bit of a infection early on, which went away like, you know, decently quickly, but it kind of put me off it. And then it was in the middle of the night, like struggling, not knowing how much he's drunk. Like, it was just a whole mess for me personally, and I just didn't enjoy it. And I know so many times I said to myself, well, it's not about enjoying it, Nikki. You're feeding your child. It's not about you, you know. But in the end, when I switched to formula because I just had enough of it and I just made that decision, as guilty as I felt for weeks after, I honestly felt a little bit better myself day to day, just being able to grab a bottle and feed him and nurture him and move on with the day and not stress about the breastfeeding, not stress about my sore cracked nipples and stuff like that. So anything that you can do to help, I highly encourage.
That's what I was going to say.
Highly
anything you can do to help yourself, help yourself, and don't make things harder for yourself.
I think that leads us on to my next question would be, obviously, like we talk all the time, the three of us, we have a group chat. Nick, obviously when you had the baby, we didn't see as much of you, totally understandable, but I can only speak for myself, but Jen, I feel like we didn't know how bad it was. So my question would be to those around someone who's struggling, what's the best thing that a friend could do in that situation to be a support or to make your life a little bit easier where we can?
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of advice on the support team?
You know, it's a really tricky one because in my friendship group, for example, from high school, I'm the one with the first baby and no one's like even close to having another baby. So I am in a whole new realm of my own. And my friends were so supportive, you know, messaging me all the time. And I was really happy to open up to them and tell them what was happening and update them on things. But I think one is just understanding that that person will not reply to your text straight away, will not answer your call. Do not call a newborn mother. Just don't. Don't do it. Text. And when you are reaching out, I think it needs to be a reach out where you're not expecting much of them. So I know my friend said, I don't want to come over and put any pressure on you. I don't want to intimidate with you with the feeling of having to see us or having to catch up with us or having us see Noah and meet Noah. We're just here, and anything that you need, please let me know. And I think just having that reassurance that people were there if I needed it. If I needed to call someone, they would like answer straight away and just like chat to me for 5 minutes, even if I was like bawling my eyes out down the line and not knowing what I was saying. But I think just being there and listening and not putting any pressure on that person to, you know, meet you physically or have you over, because I will say it's just such an intimidating thing having guests over when you have no routine, absolute chaos, you know, screaming baby, you don't want to breastfeed in front of people because you hate it and like it's all happening. I think just step back and understand that that's their situation and you've offered your help, you've offered, you know, an Uber Eats voucher or whatever it may be, but just step back and they'll reach out when they're ready.
And if the person isn't writing back, double texting, triple texting, that's okay?
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to check in. I think that don't take the silence as they're too busy for me. That's really important actually, Claude, because they might be in some sort of a spiral. I know that I would absolutely check out completely for weeks early on then because I just didn't want to reply to messages because a reply means that someone else will text me and then I have to think about replying to them again. I just didn't want to engage in conversation.
As soon as you reply to one person, then they're going to reply and then you have to reply again. It's a never-ending cycle.
And it's also, you know, some of the texts were like, how's it going? You're nailing it. Like, I just didn't want to hear that because I wasn't, and I didn't want to pretend like I wasn't, but I also didn't want to explain to people what I was going through. So it was this weird balance of like, I really appreciate you checking in, but I just don't want to like talk to anybody at the moment. What I will say is important is just check in with people. If you're not getting a response, I would check in with their closer members. So if I wasn't texting someone back, I would 100% you know, expect someone to text my husband and just check in that everything's okay, or my sister or my mum, because those are the people that are closest to me, you know, looking after me at the time. But yeah, so be there, but be understanding, I would say, definitely to that.
I think it's important to acknowledge too that depression and anxiety can affect anyone as well.
Absolutely, it doesn't discriminate.
And for those who maybe don't have a partner or not even have a kid and have experienced depression in a different way, to tell someone, and whether or not that's someone professionally, hopefully you do find professional help, but to really reach out to someone that you trust, be it a parent, a sibling, a good friend. You know, just for those listening, I want to just really make that point of like, if you are struggling in any kind of way, to tell someone.
Yeah. And there's also, I wanted to share, there's a really important great helpline. It's called Panda, which specializes in postnatal, you know, blues, feelings of sadness, all that sort of stuff. And that's a free helpline that people can call in Australia and just have a chat to someone. Because I know that, you know, if you think about therapy, it might be expensive. If you think about therapy, you know, what will people think of me going to a therapist? I don't want to walk into the building, all that sort of stuff. If you just need to call someone and speak to someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know who your partner is, doesn't know your friend group, that's a really great little resource that you can use, which I definitely use myself. So
that's such good advice, Nick. I didn't even know something like that existed.
Yeah, I think that's important. And it's really funny that it's Mother's Day. It was just Mother's Day, and this episode's coming around at that time. And I definitely wanted to take like a minute of this episode to thank my mum herself, because, oh God, I'm going to cry again. But, you know, you guys have great relationships with your mum, which is so awesome. And I've always had an amazing relationship with my mum, but you never kind of truly understand how much your mum does for you until you become a mum yourself. And our relationship has just reached like a whole new level that I never would have even thought there was, you know, a level 11 on top of level 10, because I thought that was it with my mum, and she's amazing and I've loved her since I was obviously birthed.
This is so beautiful.
Yeah, but she's like a whole new person to me now, and if it wasn't for her, I honestly would have just been completely lost throughout this time. So I think it's really important. I know that there's people out there that don't have a mum and they don't have help, and I only give you like strength and love, because mums are amazing out there, and whether you're doing it by yourself or with a partner, or whether you're doing it with your mum with you around, or your grandma or your sister or your friends, you are doing an amazing job. And I think it's really important to use those people around you as much as you can, and just, you know, tell your mum that you love her every day, because for those of you who don't have children, you'll never understand what your mum does for you and how she sacrifices what she loves and who she is and how she lives her life, just so that, you know, she can see a smile on your face at the end of the day. It's amazing. So definitely do that this Mother's Day.
I feel like we're going to have to end on that point, because we can't say anything to top that.
Oh, Nick, I just want to salute you for your honesty and your transparency. And I know it wasn't easy to say all that. And I think that, oh gosh, now I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
So many people feel exactly like you feel, but no one says it. So therefore you feel like you're the outlier, you're not the outlier.
And I know
it's so real.
You sharing your story will affect a lot of people, and kind of open conversations that need to be opened.
Definitely.
So I thank you so much for your transparency in this episode.
Thanks, guys.
And there it is. There is the feature episode from the How to Life a podcast. If you used more than one tissue, I'm sorry that I got into your supply there. I'm so thankful that you guys took the time to listen to that. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that it was relatable. I hope that, it can help you guys in some way, whether you are thinking about becoming a parent, are a parent, are about to become one, just became one, whatever it may be. I am here if you want to chat. Of course, you can connect with me online, and I'll be dropping into your feeds next week, same time, every Tuesday, with a new episode on the Baby Playbook podcast.